Let me play you a horrifying clip showing the effects of the scariest trauma. They just can't function. Today I want to talk about what this trauma is, why it's the scariest, how everyone has it to some extent, even though you don't realize it, and what I learned after half a decade of working with it. If you're new here, this channel is for people who are emotionally numb to help them feel again by addressing the issue from its root cause, which, spoiler alert, is the scariest trauma I'm going to talk about. Which brings me to the unexpected way I discovered it. 7 years ago, I was this emotionless teenager who was completely disconnected from his body and feelings. I was emotionally numb, but I was so numb that I wasn't even aware of this numbness. What I was aware was my lack of social skills. I had this group of friends, childhood friends, and I was pretty comfortable with them. But whenever I had to socialize and meet new people, I was the most awkward and shy motherfucker ever. Also, I wanted to get laid desperately. So I decided to work on my social skills and started approaching strangers to sharpen them. I thought if it was a skill, I can learn it through enough repetition and practice like football. But there was a problem. Even after months of talking to people on the street, I had no results. Primarily because I struggled with being authentic. Matter of fact, I still do. And people saw right through my try-hard efforts. The guy I used to follow back then for social skills kept saying that if you want to become a true social master, you must release the trapped trauma that you're carrying. And I remember listening to that and thinking, I don't fucking carry any trauma. I had a pretty healthy childhood. But my lack of social results was evident and in my face. So I trusted the guy and decided to fuck it, let's give it a shot. And that was when I discovered the scariest type of trauma. Most people think that trauma is just horrible things happening to you, like physical assault, rape, war, whatever. But that's just one type of trauma. A lot of experts call it capital T trauma. The other type of trauma that I am calling the scariest is subtle, but it's equally damaging. It's good things that were supposed to happen to you as a child not happening. So let me explain. As a child, you're dependent on your caregivers for your physical needs like food and safety. When these needs are not met, you literally die. Similarly, you are also dependent on them for your emotional needs, like being attached to an adult who loves you, being comforted when you're upset, being loved unconditionally, being heard, seen. When these needs are not met or neglected, you don't die literally, but you die psychologically. The clip you saw in the beginning was a very extreme version of this neglect, that is maternal deprivation. Those children lost their mothers at a very young age, which was a violation of their need to attach to a loving and caring adult. I don't like how there is not enough awareness around this trauma that, in my opinion, is equally as damaging as capital T trauma. And all the experts on trauma agree to this. This is why I'm so passionate about this topic and have created a free tool that tells you exactly how much neglect you experienced as a child. You answer some very specific questions and a lot of your situations start to make sense. Do check it out. Here's why this trauma is the scariest and destroys lives. Think of how often you had to be a certain way to be loved, or had someone you could share your emotions with. Or think of how often you were seen for who you truly are. All the times these needs of yours were not met or violated, it created a neglect wound. And the scariest part about this trauma is that more often than not, it goes undetected, just like in my case. So for instance, if you have PTSD from war, you are aware of the symptoms of shell shock and its cause, which enables you to work on it and heal through separate modalities, mediums, whatever. But when it comes to neglect, even though the symptoms are equally as debilitating, because you aren't aware of its existence, you can't work on it to heal and get better. Like this underlying illness that rots your body from inside, which you don't realize until it's too late. And it shows up as a dozen of symptoms in your body. But neglect is in the end a form of trauma. So what makes it so difficult to become aware of? The first reason is that the majority of neglect trauma is pre-verbal. That is, it happens before you can speak and store memory. So imagine a 6-month baby who is crying for attention desperately, like literally crying her lungs out for half an hour, but no one comes to tend her. Do you think she remembers it when she grows up? Of course not. But if this happens repeatedly, her system will most certainly carry all that stress of not being attended for that half an hour, rather hours. Second is that because it's the absence of something, you literally don't know it happened. Like if you were in a scary accident as a child, you'll probably remember it for the rest of your life. But if you were not hugged when you were sad, that is difficult to remember. You might register it as an increased feeling of sadness, but you won't remember a hug not happening, if that makes sense. The third and final reason is that it is very common. Because society on an average is emotionally illiterate, neglect of emotional needs is literally everywhere. It has become normal. Not in the sense that it's okay, but in its literal definition of the word. Dr. Gabor Mate says that small t trauma is universal in nature. That is, everyone experiences it. This is where things like the test helps a lot by making you aware of normal day-to-day things that were traumatizing from a child's perspective. Here's my key lesson from working on this trauma for half a decade, which will really bring everything together. You might be wondering, how bad can absence of stuff really be? Like there's no way it compares to something like the trauma of sexual assault or war. But let me challenge that. Imagine your psyche is like a house, and capital T trauma is bad weather, hurricanes, rainstorms that cause damage to the psyche of your house. Neglect trauma, on the other hand, is like the foundation of your house is not strong enough. So if the foundation is so weak that it's like a rickety, wobbly house, even slow winds will destroy the house. But if it has a rock solid foundation, no winds, no rainstorms can damage it. There are research instances of two people, even young children, going through the exact same traumatizing event, and person A becomes traumatized, he is debilitated, whereas person B comes out stronger. How is that possible? The reason for that is the strong foundation of person B was able to withstand the stress of the traumatic winds, whereas person A's weak foundation collapsed. Dr. Bessel, who wrote the book The Body Keeps the Score, says traumatized people are not traumatized because something happened to them, but because they were alone with that experience, which is nothing but a lack of foundation. And this is the most dangerous aspect of neglect trauma. It exponentially compounds the effect of capital T trauma. Let me give you an example. A boy gets bullied in the school but comes home and shares it with his parents. They help him process the fear, sadness, shame, and comfort him. And they even talk to the bully's parents to resolve the issue once and for all. So it's done. Bosh. Another boy gets bullied, but because both of his parents are working and he has no one to share those heartbreaking feelings with, he pushes them down and lives with the bullying for months. just suffering silently. And those of you who have been bullied know what an impact this could have on a child. The impact of neglect similarly can be truly devastating. If you want to start healing, click here to watch this video next, where I share my exact system that I've developed after half a decade of healing and research.